Select board meeting in Ashfield, Town Hall. There are 3 at this time, 4 recording devices that I see, audio and 1 video recording device. Before we go much further, I think it's fitting that we just take a moment at the start of the meeting, a moment of silence to remember Susan Clark, elected member of the Board of Health. She got on the Board of Health by filling an unexpired term. She took board minutes for us, as well as for the Board of Health, and she was a very devoted volunteer and part of the fabric that makes the town of Ashfield. And, Susan, along with Brian, have given a tremendous number of hours in their time here to serve the town of Ashfield. So I just to remember Susan, and just if we took a moment, that'd be great. Thank you. Good. Now we're working at getting the bills paid here, and then we'll get started with our agenda. Looks like Ron has a grandchild on the way this evening, so we won't hold that against him. We found that was probably more interesting.
He said if he can make it in, he will.
Why don't we get him done? Because the last time we passed over something, then we got to the end of the meeting and forgot about it.
Okay.
Getting the bills paid is pretty important. Since our first appointment just arrived, he won't mind waiting for just a few minutes. So. Gotcha. We're just getting the bills paid, Don. You remember what that's like, so. Yes. Make sure we get that taken care of.
It says shoveling. I think we'll be doing it again this week. The Motorola, did they repair the radios?
No, those are pages.
Wishful thinking on my part.
That's all right.
Yeah. I mean, per tree, that's not too bad.
Oh, yeah, you were thinking the number of trees was high, but.
No. Computer price. That was a good deal.
Mary, are we still expecting MJ in tonight?
Yeah.
That was the one little bit. Is that transfer? Oh, we might have it together here. Maybe that's the total, these two. Maybe that was one more.
I had the label one.
Oh, yes.
Don, you're the first victim tonight. I want to discuss where we're at with the, or where you're at rather, with the history project.
Yes.
Go for it.
Well, thank you very much for putting the agenda giving me a moment of your time. As I walked out here tonight through the frosty, cold night, and thinking of how families all over town are celebrating the holidays and one thing and another, and Rebecca Phyllis, I think, is coming, my co-editor, and she'll be along shortly, I hope. But anyway, to take a night out, as you do all year long, for the work that you do, I just feel very, very grateful for it. And my sense of gratitude was particularly keen tonight. What I wanted to do, as you will remember, there was an appropriation or an allocation of funds to this project, the history project, at town meeting in May, and that money, it was made available at up to $2,000, and we have been drawing on that in various ways. And at one point, I thought we might want to come in and talk about that, but that seems to be a simple administrative matter.
Stop talking about it.
She's here, okay. Well, let's come. She had been moving wood in from her porch all afternoon, and she's exhausted, but she is not being daunted by a little wood on the porch.
So then need to be added?
No, so I've just begun. And I'm just going to thank the select board for giving us some time and mention that the appropriation or the allocation of funds from grant income was made at the annual meeting, and we are drawing on that for various work that's being done for the project. We are very grateful to have it. I just wanted to give a brief report of where we are, kind of, because it's critically important for the town. The project is, and it needs to be one that the town can be proud of, and that presents, as far as we're able, an accurate picture of the town and a balanced picture of the town and its people, its community and all. And we've worked very, very hard on that. And I must say that over the 7 or 8 years that we've been working on it, almost 10 years now, I think, the momentum is finally beginning to grow. We are really encouraged by the fact that a number of people have stepped forward to write important articles for us, articles that we knew needed to be written, in some cases fairly delicate ones, but we have got those articles in good, competent hands. We are confident that that's going to work out at this point. We have articles that are really brilliantly written, really by people that are just very gifted at writing. Not all of them famous writers either. A lot of local people have contributed terrific things, different pieces and all. So we're really hoping, and indeed by this time even expecting, to put together a book that the town can really be proud of, and we're very, very excited about it. All of the writing that's been done for us, I think without an exception, has been done by volunteers. And it's work that has involved a great deal of research, a great deal of time by skillful people. And it's really, from that standpoint, quite remarkable. The editing of it is all on a volunteer basis as well. All the hard work of putting this thing together. The photography that we've got, we haven't paid for that. It's all been done by local photographers that are very skillful people and contributing their labors. So, and our copy editing is being done by a world-famous copy editor who's a resident of town, Chris Jerome, and she is, I've worked with her on another project for which she is really paid, and I know how good she is. She's really marvelous, and she will be our copy editor for this project, which again makes us very encouraged. So we've got a lot going for us, and one other section of the book I should mention, we are expecting, as in volume 2, to have a biographical section that will present brief accounts of people in town that have lived here for the last 50 years. Inevitably, I think our loading in that case, as in many others, that the front loader, that is, were better for the last 20 or 30 years than for the first 20 years of our 50 years. But we've got very good stuff going all the way back. And the biographical section is in the very capable hands of Pat Thayer, well known to us, to most of us, and probably nearly all of us. But Pat brings a warm heart, a quick mind, and tireless energy to the framing of putting together of this biographical section. So we feel very good about that too. Our intention is to offer the materials that we're collecting, the photographs, the drafts, the articles and so on, and all the other material that we've got, including two full arrays, or virtually full arrays, of the Ashfield News since its founding in 1976. We've got those two versions of that all the way complete. And we will provide that and other materials, very valuable materials, to the Historical Society. You may know, or probably not remember, many of us, but you will know that the Historical Society was founded in the mid-1960s as a repository for the materials that were gathered in preparation for the writing of Volume 2 of the history of Ashfield, the period from 1915, I guess it was, to 1965, 1910 to 1960, right, 1910 to 1960. But they had gathered a lot of materials, the editors of that edition, that second volume, that was given to the society that was created to house it, really, and it has grown, obviously, since then. But it is our intention, similarly, to deliver to the Historical Society the materials that we're gathering, which are substantial for this project. So we're grateful to have that expectation, too. Finally, let me just anticipate this, that the layout and the design and the printing of this book is not work for amateurs. If this book is to be what it can be and what it needs to be, we're going to have to hire some people. We've got funds for that. Whether we'll have to engage in further efforts of fundraising, it's not quite clear yet. It's very difficult to anticipate how much that's going to cost. But we do have some funds laid aside for it. Most of the funds that we've gathered over the years in fundraising efforts and so on is still here and still available for that. We haven't spent much of it. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape, but I'm just anticipating that there will be some costs that is not for local volunteers, as the rest of the gathering and editing of this material has been work for volunteers. That's where printing and design work and whatnot is going to involve some professional hands. Phyllis, what would you add?
I would like to add that you mentioned Chris Jerome, who came outside of the amateur arena. She is also volunteering her valuable time to us, and that's quite a gift. And she's ready to take on the bunch. And we will do initial going over and documenting that it doesn't matter, you know, her expertise and her finesse. But when we get that done, and we already have a collection of things for her, she'll grapple it. And so I felt for the first few years when we began to suggest to people that maybe you'd like to write about this or write about that, and it was just terrifying. And I think that we have now received so much, and not that everybody, or I'm not sure anybody has been able to look at it yet, except for us on the board. The word is out that people that you know are writing things for the book, and that gives people courage. And we've been amazed at some people just jump right on it, others think, oh, I can't do it, and then they do it. And so we need a lot more, but I think that the momentum is increasing all the time. So it's work, though.
So this will be 61.
60 to 210. They were 50, 50, and 50. That's the first one. Well, the first one was 100. Yeah.
But the second one was 50, and this is 50. This is from 1960 to 2010. 50 years.
I have a question. Are the biographical sections based on what people had filled out and sent back to you?
So far,
Yeah, originally that's how it started. We don't have it all that way because not all of us, you know, not all everybody responded, but we should the best we can. I don't know how they did it in volume 2, but it was very comprehensive. We don't know who they left out, but
some of them that were involved are still around, so they can help us. Anne Lilly, for example, I think. So she has some memory of it, which is good.
The presentation, is that, there'll be bound editions, and then didn't I hear once that there'll be an electronic version also?
well, that's a possibility, but there'll definitely be a book.
There will be a book, right? And then other materials which may not, you know, may be too long to fit into the book and so on, but have valuable material, we will have those in some kind of electronic format that people can access.
It reminds me that we talked about that very early on. You know, I think it was a 78 RPM we were talking about. And now it's the web, you know, and all the steps that are in between the DVD and the back. But there may be too much.
Technology is incredible. I mean, I must say that from one meeting of our group to the next, almost to the house, it's just amazing. We were talking about putting a DVD in the back of the book and all that, and forget it. The technology has gone way beyond that.
It'll probably be on the web, you know, and then it can grow like this, you know, media.
So we're learning.
Well, it's great. It's great to see how a totally independent volunteer group can manage their way through all this without having to get too tied up in
Well,
so much of the
give
other.
all the support we can, you know, and some people don't need any help, and once in a while, we don't need to put a comma in, but sometimes we have to work hard, you know, but nobody is turned away.
So I'm noticing that town meeting, we appropriated $2,000. So far, you've drawn $125.
A cheap labor. This is a young man that you probably know about, who's a graduate, he graduated a year or two ago with an English major. He's just wonderful. He's very savvy, he's very intuitive, and he works quietly. He started going into the office and working there and trying to keep warm with our little stove, but mostly he takes the work home now. But he's been, I think the principal thing he's working on right now is indexing all of the Asheville newses that I've spent weeks going through. So he's indexing them in a way that you can, if you want to look up the sewer project or something, and then you can look in the index and find out the dates of the issues that covered it. And that's a big help, because nobody would know where to start.
So you're probably going to have another
So
little,
he's indexing it.
another fund drive, or
Well,
try
we
to,
have one every year. And,
the end of the year, so
yeah, but.
we've done that every year for the last 7 or 8 years. And it raised, I don't know, anyway, thousands of dollars.
But, yeah, we do have a telephone bill, which the telephone bill and
Okay.
gas, but we don't use gas, so we just go somewhere else when it's really cold. And we have whatever the internet or data costs us for that, because we have a computer and all that.
you have any questions on that at all?
Only, would you be anticipating, although we'll be doing budgets later, needing a similar sum, more? Are you at some point where, or does your group need to discuss that first?
Well, that's what we do. And part the reason that we were not able to give a very good estimate as to what we wanted last year, and it finally, we worked out this formula for saying up to $2,000 when we receive bills. It's very difficult, especially at this stage, to know what it's going to cost to produce the book, which is really what we're talking about now. That's the major expense we're going to have. As I say, that a lot of that has to be professionally done. It's hard to do that when you don't have the book to show a professional and say, all right, what's it going to cost us to print this thing, and so on. The money that we get, the money that we've gotten from our annual drives, cover 2 things. One, the support we need to produce the book, to get it, you know, to print it, and if we have a computer there and so on, things like that we have to get to set ourselves up. And the other thing, it has, the money that we gather has to do with the quality of the book we're going to present, and also the cost of it. And we're going to sell it, obviously, to members of the town, but we need for it, the cost of it to be reasonable for folks. And so those things are, anything that we get in the way of support is given to those 2 causes. One, to produce the best book we can, and secondly, to keep the costs low. Final cost low.
And sometimes we have to do something like buying a new printer or something, you know, like that would come along to the $300. Mostly it's just a very low maintenance cost, since we're not really using the gas. We bought that speeder battery, that's really expensive.
This summer is when we're expecting to put the book together. I mean, in the meantime, we're gathering the materials, we're nagging our authors, several of them in this room, I hope you feel nagged. Anyway, that's what we're doing now, but come this summer, we're really going to put it together, and that's when we're going to be able to make hard estimates.
Good. Well, volunteers keep stepping up, keeps the costs under control.
And everybody in this room can try to encourage a few people to think about writing or something. And we got all kinds of lists of things to write about.
Has that list already been put in the Ashfield News so people would know?
It's not in that
It
form.
has, in fact, I was thinking this afternoon along those lines of doing, not every single detail, but broad strokes that people might want to step up to figure out.
That's a good idea, Paul, actually, in the news, to have some kind of a summary of the things we still need, the pieces we still need.
And catch someone's eye to contribute.
You keep your eye keen, too.
It's a big tent. It's a
Sorry.
big tent, get
Yeah.
under it, right?
That's right, there's a lot of room.
Well, thanks for bringing us up to date on that, and thank everybody that's working with you.
That's all we do.
We will.
Barrel.
Thank you. We will.
Something none of us say quite as often maybe as we should. So, very good.
Thank you.
MJ. MJ is not here yet. That was the next one. We'll wait for her. Oh, old business. Old business. The letter, Ted, that letter that you drafted for us so nicely. In my file. Paulette, what do you think?
Is this copy that we have in our folder the same one that Ted
This
sent around?
is the draft.
The draft that Ted
This
sent around?
this is the draft. It's dated up on the top, draft.
Right, I
the
just want to
Ted.
make sure it's the same one, yeah. Well,
I
except
thought it
from
was Ted.
Mary, so I don't know if it was edited, as opposed to from Ted.
Thank
I
you
didn't- I
for
didn't-
putting so much time into it.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I think it's great, except that I would probably, under item 2 there, I would probably not lead with my chin quite so much with a 2.5% payroll raise. I mean, that may be possible, but I would probably say 2. That was the,
He did have an or in there, I think, when he sent.
And in
this
my
around.
cover email, I suggested that that might look a little aggressive to you. But I'm sure the finance committee would bring you back into line if you tried to go with 2.5%.
right away. But, no, I can see that you put quite a bit of time into it, and it certainly would be, it's quite a bit wordier than I would have drafted, so I
I know.
appreciate that, but it does kind of explain to everybody where we're at, so. With that, did you have any changes that you wanted to?
No, that was, I remember that one from before, and I think that's a good change. I also wanted to compliment, I think it reads well. It says the Finance Committee and Select Board, and it's the 3rd paragraph. I like that. Thank you.
So, we'll make a motion to approve that? I'll make a motion that we approve the letter with the change of to 2% on the payroll.
On item 2, I'll second.
Do you have any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Now, attached to the letter is the budget schedule. And Mary did it. And these budget schedules are pretty much up to, they can be changed at any time, of course.
Are the members of the
But the,
Finance Committee available for these dates?
with the Finance Committee, the 3rd, the 17th, the 3rd of March, the 17th of March, the 31st of March.
They're all Mondays.
They're all
I know in prior years, they weren't on Mondays, that's why I was asking if that's okay with the Finance Committee.
Well, I know there's one member of the Finance Committee I got a chance to sit with that says that Mondays aren't good for her. But here she is.
Now, Mondays was what we discussed at the last meeting. We
Right.
discussed select board one week, finance committee the next. and
Right, I mean, these are the
think-
alternate, this would have the select board here every Monday night, one Monday night to do our regular business, which will probably include some discussion of the budget, but then the alternate Monday night, we will meet with the finance committee.
Is there a better date to move these two so that everybody from the finance committee has an opportunity to be here?
Mondays are great for me because on weeks where I do have to do some traveling, generally it's not on Mondays. And it's generally it's the tail end of the week that I'm on the move. So as far as my input, Mondays are good. I know that I'm not the only one on the board, but, that discusses this. But at our select board meeting, I believe we all approved that schedule to start with. As far as select board members, I don't see how we can pick the whole schedule for the finance committee, but we need to work out dates that are.
Right. That's what I was kind of asking, if we knew that was the case, would it work for you to move to a Tuesday, which keeps it at the beginning of the week, as opposed to a Wednesday, which is like in the middle?
Got it all scheduled for Mondays, but
I have not identified any nights that finance committee members cannot meet, although this schedule has been promulgated now for a few weeks to the finance committee as a preliminary schedule. It's now news to me that Ricky can't make the Monday nights. I know there will be one night there that I can't make myself, but I don't know that you're going to find any night that somebody can't make it. So I could go back to the finance committee and see if there's any superior night to the Mondays.
We would also need to check for the meeting schedules here in town hall.
Yeah.
We often have two meetings, and I've already scheduled, so we'll have to take a look at
I
that.
think one enormous improvement is to have these happen every other week for the finance committee. That helps us a fair amount. And it also keeps the focus of the meeting entirely on the budget, not having to wait for other business to get processed.
I mean, there's very few nights last year that we had 8 of us here.
Right.
And I think that this schedule, although it is stacked on Mondays, unless it is much different than any other budget that I've ever had anything to do with, we won't cover it in these nights. We won't be able to put all the pieces to the puzzle, so I imagine there'll be some Tuesday or Wednesday or some type of meeting, so we'll have to put the rest of the deal back together. But I really don't see that this is a bad schedule from my standpoint. I think this is a good place to start.
I think one thing that would be beneficial is to strike early so that everybody knows as quickly as possible to get this budget letter that's been approved now out and a schedule. Call it a preliminary schedule if you like, so people can kind of put those things on their calendar. We, in the meantime, I think, could do some checking to see if there might be a meeting or two down the track that could be adjusted to a Tuesday night or something like that, if it would be helpful. But I think the sooner we get a pattern out there and in front of people, the more rapidly they can respond and have, a few weeks to put these budgets together and so on. If we wait too much longer, then you're telling people, it's January 10th, here's the budget letter, by the way, could you have this back to me by January 15th? And that just seems impossible.
I know my schedule, I think you did also for Monday night, so we're definitely available.
Which Monday was the Monday that was not good for you because
The 17th
of,
of March, I'm sorry.
should we reschedule that knowing that they're going to be short 2 committee members right away?
Well, that still leaves a quorum, right? Because we
Yeah,
discussed
so
the
that's a quorum of
17th.
3 if the other 3 could be there. I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks though, so you put it to another night, that may or may not help, I'm not sure.
It's just there's the fire, the ambulance, town hall, there's a lot in there.
On the 17th?
Of February is what he's saying.
March.
March.
Oh,
He said
March.
March 17th.
I'm sorry,
It's the school,
That's school. That's
Right.
the school.
And we did discuss,
that's just a cook.
Why would we want to
Probably
talk
why
about that?
It's all the biggest thing.
well, I think one of So
But
the exchanges we had was that there are school budget hearings that probably some will attend before then, so.
Mary and I have exchanged communications on this and noted that there are enough budget hearings at the school committee level, some of them on Tuesday nights and so on, that I and others, I'm sure, can be there to be participants in those discussions. And that's, it seems to me, where you've got the traction in terms of getting any adjustments, such as they might be, to the school budget. Once it comes to us on March 17th, the school committee will have by then, I think, voted their budget. So it's kind of take it or leave it, which is always feeling a little bit after the fact to me.
That's true. That's true. They've already approved it, and
They will have.
so I believe as we get closer that some of these dates and times and extra dates will have to be put in, but
Well, and just one comment I'd like to make is a number of the items you see listed here actually just come in as a request without any discussion, some of them are quite simple, so.
those are the ones we get hung up on the most.
Can be.
An extra $20 for dog food or something like that from the animal control officer, you know, we get stuck up on that. So, I think this is fine. I think it would be wise to approve the schedule as preliminary.
Yeah.
That you put preliminary subject to change as needed. I make the motion.
And we may find that somebody asks us to move something besides the
Preliminary.
And second.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good. We are on our way to a fiscal 15 budget. Yeehaw. All right, Ashfield Police Department, interim administration planning. So this is what we adjourned last week, or 2 weeks ago now. Where's the chief? I just saw him walk in. Where's he hiding? Oh, there he is. Over there. So, 2 weeks ago, we had a letter from chief. We accepted with regret. Didn't have a lot of time to talk about it, so we were supposed to come up with some ideas on planning for the interim. I guess the first thing I'd like to do is I would like to be named as the liaison to the police department. In light that I don't think there's been a whole lot of that going on. And from talking to the chief, and I think we've met 3 times in the last 2 weeks, that I think that would be best. If you leave that from your plate, if you don't have a problem.
No, I think that sounds like a good idea.
I did stop. I had this thing bouncing around in the back of my head, so I was in Greenfield, and I stopped quickly and grabbed Donna's ear, and she confirmed that it was correct, because there was this idea bouncing around in my head that, you know, the absence of a police chief, the chairman of the select board is the police chief, and I really didn't want to be that guy without seeing it coming, so. So that's one of the reasons.
What did you
In the
hear?
absence of a police chief, the chairman of the board of selectmen is the police chief.
Okay,
And I did not want to be that guy without at least seeing it coming, so
okay.
having that sneak up on me. All right, so we need to vote on that. I'll make a
Doesn't
motion.
hurt to
I'll make a
vote.
motion. Never hurts to vote, that's right.
Doesn't it?
Vote often.
I'll second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, good, we got that off our plate. So, Paulette, have you come up with any ideas that you'd like to put out for what we should do in the interim? The chief made his recommendation in his resignation letter to, as acting police chief, in the interim to make Corporal Wilder that person. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on how to move forward on that?
I still hold firm to what Wade Seaton told us in 2010 about having people, especially since the town has a strong chief, acting as an interim or being the police chief, that they should be full-time academy trained. And I think we could look for an alternative. In 2010, John Cotton came in part-time hours and filled that role, whether we could ask him if he would be interested in doing that again. I know we heard from an email to us that other people have had some ideas of other part-time chiefs in the area to contact that have had years on the job to see if they might be interested in some part-time work. And I think those are reasonable options to at least look at and explore.
Well,
Quickly, of course.
exploring is,
Well, by
when you
virtue,
look at how long Lewis and Clark were gone, exploring.
well,
And we've got a guy that's resigning that's leaving his position on Friday. Is that the correct date?
Yes, sir.
So we really need to make a decision unless we're gonna, for something interim to whatever a longer term plan would be.
right.
Now, I met with the chief a week ago Wednesday. We talked about what was going on with policies and procedures and having those things in place. He had a department meeting on Friday evening that I was able to slide into, Friday before Christmas, that I was able to slide into and introduce myself to all the officers. I apologize that I hadn't been in contact with them more in the past year, but if they had any concerns during the transition, just speak to me and talk to me about what the chief had proposed or any of that. I haven't got any negative feedback at all. So I do think we need to make a decision tonight as to who's going to be in charge of the police department from Saturday morning until we replace them.
Well, maybe we need two options. Maybe officer in charge. At that time would be something that we could agree to and continue to pursue quickly based on this board's meeting, inquiring of John Cotton and others in the area to fill in quickly as interim police chief, could still keep officer in charge. And it will take some time to put together finding a full-time or part-time chief, whatever the town we're going to do.
I mean, I do believe that although our plate looked fairly straightforward and clean, you know, your resignation does add, chief, a little bit of, you know, something extra for us to do. When I was thinking maybe we had things under control to a certain extent. But it does come at a time when, and I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago, when as the select board and the finance committee, as we work through the budget process and so forth, we can modify the plans, you know, of what maybe someone had thought about at one point and what is practical financially. I mean, last year, certainly I would think from the actions at town meeting following the finance committee's lead, the police department didn't have the support to, you know, to garner a higher budget. So we can talk about that on the front end this year. I mean, it gives us the opportunity to do that. And I think you bring up a very good point about full-time chief versus a part-time chief. But before I go to Chief Drunk, I do think right now we have a quite functional police department, and they seem to not have any issues, so to speak, or that they've certainly voiced to me, maybe to you, and I haven't heard about it yet, about Corporal Wilder stepping up to be in charge for this interim period, and I think that is very workable. Certainly it is much different than the last time the police department went through a lot of changes. Chief?
Yeah, I just wanted to address, Paulette had made a statement about Chief Cotton or John Cotton. He actually was up here earlier today. He had heard about my pending departure from Phil.
With this, Chief, would you mind coming up front? Because with this fan running in my ear.
I can talk really loud. That's my dog. Yeah, John Cotton was actually up here today. He had heard about my pending departure, so he came up to basically give his regards, and he indicated to me he has zero interest in acting in the capacity of interim chief again. He's quite happy with his life as it currently exists. I mean, certainly encourage you to get that from him directly, but I could pretty much tell you, and he was asked by myself, and I remember somebody else mentioned it to him as well, and really he had no interest at all in doing that. So that particular direction, I would say, is probably closed. So I just wanted to address that.
Have you had any other thoughts on the transition since?
Well, I mean, one thing I did, obviously you hear things, and I had heard the concern about the full-time versus the interim reserve intermittent academy. And I actually reached out to the attorney for the Mass Chiefs of Police Association earlier today.
I believe that's in our folder.
I believe it is. And he indicated to me if it was not a full-time position, that it could be filled by an officer who had attended the part-time reserve intermittent academy. The only time you would require somebody who had been to the full academy is if you were going to go with a full-time chief of police. So that, in my mind, took maybe one of the arguments away from some people who were concerned about Corporal Wilder as far as her training background.
So I'm looking around.
Did you send that today? Didn't you?
Mary had it.
We went in everybody's file. It's an exchange of emails between Pat and the Mass Chiefs Association. And I'm trying to...
Oh, maybe that's because I got 2 copies of mine.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, wow.
And I connected it here.
Another maybe I missed
Because I was going to look at the second. Actually, it's the first.
As a point of information, Jack Collins is the legal counsel for the Mass Chiefs of Police Association. So I reached out to him earlier today because there was some contrasting opinion as to whether or not that was in fact the case. I did look on the Mass Police training website as well, and it did address the full-time component that you would have to have full-time academy. But if, as I said, if you're not a full-time, it's not a full-time position, then you could go with somebody who had the reserve intermittent training.
Looking around the room, I think there's quite a few that are here to find out what's going to happen with the police department. So I just want to, Ricky, I see your hand. I just want to read this so everybody knows what we're talking about.
Sure.
So this is Jack Collins that the chief is talking about. He says, Chapter 41, Section 96B mandates that anyone appointed to a full-time position must attend a full-time academy. If the town decides that the position is part-time, even if it takes 30 to 35 hours a week, that only requires graduation from the Reserve Academy.
Right. I think you referred it to as RI,
RI,
Yeah.
what's the I?
reserve intermittent.
Intermittent. Okay. So, thanks for doing that homework. That answers questions that I'm sure will come up. So, and Corporal Wilder, you graduated from the Reserve Intermittent Academy. Okay, so I guess that helps address that. Ricky, you wanted?
I just have a question about that this is a personnel issue, and we do have a personnel committee in town, and I'm not quite sure why the decision's being made without addressing, asking these questions to the personnel committee.
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. And I did a little research in my file of research, looking up the bylaw that established the personnel board. And I did have a couple of emails from Priscilla Phelps. And I couldn't find in the personnel board bylaw where it states anything about actually hiring people. Okay, I mean, it's not very long, the bylaw. But it says you're to describe the duties and responsibilities of municipal positions. This is all under, this was adopted on the 3rd of May 2003, a bylaw, and it says that we accepted the authority of the Mass General Laws, Section 41, 108, Section 108C. And it said the Personnel Board would describe the duties and responsibilities of municipal positions, propose and review compensation plans for those positions, propose working conditions and fringe benefits for all employees, compilation and revision of employee handbook, and do comparative personnel and salary data from other communities. And then it talks about the membership, filling vacancies. Nobody can be on for more than 3 consecutive terms.
What's it say?
That's almost a sentence.
What's it say about filling vacancies?
It says that if it's not filled within 60 days, if such a vacancy is not filled within 60 days of written notice, the remaining members shall fill the vacancy.
Oh, that's.
Is that the,
This is
on the board
This
itself?
is the bylaw, yes. It says that, Mass General Law, Section 41, Section 108C, you're going to have a chairperson, you're going to have a secretary. The board shall oversee the administration of personnel policies and establish such procedures as it deems necessary for the proper administration. The board shall maintain the handbook. From time to time, you can the board can investigate the duties and rates of salary. So you investigative and you make recommendations. The board shall assist the select board and departments by preparing and reviewing current information so as to municipal salary and wage rates, fringe benefits, working conditions, acting in the capacity as the technical staff of the select board. The board shall maintain written job descriptions for all town positions. Each description shall consist of a statement describing the essential nature of the work and the characteristics that distinguish each position. A job description is intended to generally describe the responsibilities pertaining to a particular position and is not meant to interfere with the ability of the immediate supervisor to assign duties. The board shall administer and enforce this bylaw from time to time by its own vote. It may issue, amend, or revoke its policies, regulations, and procedures. So it really doesn't talk about hiring, but it talks about all the things that the Personnel Board has been doing so well for the last 2 years, which has been making the job descriptions and working on
Then I'm not
the
really
policy.
sure why is this different than when Mary was hired and the board advertised the position, interviewed candidates, made recommendations to the select board. What makes this situation different than that one?
I'm not sure if it makes it any different, except a decision has to be made.
Well, I didn't say
Because
that.
the time, because the time is ticking here. On Saturday morning, I don't intend being a police chief in the town of Ashland. Somebody has to make a decision on where we are going forward. It doesn't mean that we're getting on a train track that's bound for San Francisco, but it says we need to at least get out of town and start working towards that.
There is precedent from the past when there was no chief, that the then sergeant was appointed, I think, officer in charge. And they did that for quite some time, even though I believe John Cotton at that time came in 20 hours or less per week. That would be something we could do, as opposed to having an interim police chief.
Well, on advice of town council, the advice of town council is to not go with an officer in charge, but to go with an acting police chief. In my short discussion with Donna, because I first was thinking of an officer in charge. Yeah, I guess we got it open here now. We'll take a few discussions. I may stop somebody if anybody gets talking about the character, the capacity of somebody to do a job, something that I think we might be wandering into any discussion that may have to do with executive session. But if we're talking in general about where to move forward from here, I think that's the discussion Paulette and I are in right now. I'll entertain some discussion.
Well, maybe my question, I'm just wondering what your reservations are about, what was step in, she's so familiar with our town, familiar with the duties. I guess maybe I'm asking a question that you don't want to answer, but I'm just wondering what the reservations are.
I don't believe I ever stated that I had any reservations about Corporal Wilder. It has been about the advice that you received from Wayne Sampson to not have police chiefs that were not full-time academy trained. And although Chief Droney has gone and they did say you could do that, I still think the advice from Wayne Sampson back in 2010, we spent a lot of time at that time, and there was a reason for that, and that is my concern. It is nothing to do with Corporal Wilder. It has to do with the philosophy, and the philosophy that was given to us at that time was meant for this town to take an action in a positive way for the future. And it was my understanding that the intent would be to stay that way, not to just change whenever we thought that, well, things have been running nicely, so we can switch gears. I'm all for staying for the road we were going down. So that is really what it's about. In terms of full-time academy trained police chief, interim, part-time, full-time, whatever. That's my decision, based on what I learned back then. So I keep saying it's not about Officer Wilder. I would support her going to full-time academy in whatever way the town wanted to help her down that road, absolutely.
Rick Chandler.
Statement question, I guess. Having sat behind that table through a couple of these transitions that where things weren't in as good shape as they are right now, I think that if you can draw somebody from within in the short term, that makes an awful lot of sense. I think, though, at the same time, you kind of have to be clear with that person and with the town about what the longer term might look like. And be clear, as I think Northfield has been a good example of this lately, be clear whether the plan is to move toward a part-time chief or not, to be clear with the interim candidate whether they want to be or they might be considered to be that candidate. And that's when I think some of the questions about part-time, full-time academies and all that might come up. But in the short term, if you have a qualified person that knows the department, you're a lot better off than you have been in a couple of these past transitions. So
Mr. Murray.
I believe I was the one that contacted Wayne Sampson back in 2010 at the time we were in a situation where I think it's very different from today's situation. As many of you will recall, there was quite a bit of rancor in the police department at that time with allegations against the chief. And the chief, as it turned out, resigned under some controversial circumstances. Our police procedures and manuals and so on were thought to be not up to date and properly vetted, so that was an issue before us. There were questions about firearms and equipment and the whereabouts of some of these items. Issues around disciplinary matters and so on. It was really quite a kind of a chaotic situation, I must say. At that time, I do recall, as Paulette alludes to, Wayne Sampson, who was the consultant that we hired, advising us that a full-time academy-trained candidate would be the best candidate for a full-time police department position. And we in the end did go through the committee to select a full-time chief. Although we did bring in as an interim chief, John Cotton. But that's because I think of all the different turmoil in the department. In my judgment at this point, there are several things that I think need to be addressed and settled. And I think with the upcoming budget season, that's one of the best places to look at it. Whether we need a full-time chief, whether a part-time chief would be sufficient, whether maybe a shared chief with some other community would make any sense. That's another third option that I think we've not looked at very closely. And it seems to me in the interval, we would be well advised to not just have an officer in charge, but an interim chief, so you've got sufficient authority of the kind that would be needed to affect police department business adequately for a period of time, maybe till summertime, something like that, 5-6 months, a definite appointment, which, it should be understood for any candidate, would be subject to review and possible termination or renewal. Can't say which, but that would be a function of what it is decided to do in the interim, instead of just kind of jumping into the assumption we're going to have a full-time chief. So my sense is that if you proceeded with a interim chief appointment within the department, from within, that would make a great deal of sense under the current circumstances.
How many hours, Diane Wilder, are you currently working a week?
19.
Well, in one of my meetings, I asked the chief very directly. I said, I'm going to ask you a very direct question, and I'd like a very direct answer. And I think he accommodated me quite well. As I said, in the town of Asheville, what do you really believe it takes for the number of hours for a police chief in this community? And he pretty much said 25 hours. So my follow-up question was on some of the routine, check me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember our discussion well, if there was somebody to do some of the routine clerical type things, how many hours would it be? And the answer was considerably less. Right?
Yep.
So I think that gives us, I think that goes to Mr. Murray's point that in our finance discussions and building a budget, maybe now we have a clearer view than last time when the police department was pretty much non-existent or in terrible disarray.
Tom,
Yes.
I will say, and I think we were talking about the administrative police chief type position. And there are obviously other duties above and beyond that. Patrol.
Right.
Patrol duties, taking calls, going to accidents,
Right,
and things
but
like that. So there are some other things, but the actual administrative part of it is that.
So, I mean, I'm not telling you that it won't be some management to work through this period until we find out what the cure is, but I do believe from my 15 minutes that I interrupted the department downstairs a week ago Friday, it didn't seem that the officers there seemed to have any problem at all with, have there been any reports otherwise? Any dissent in the ranks thinking that the chief's recommendation was appropriate? Have you heard any, Chief?
None.
So, I think, I would hope that we'd be able to make some progress on this tonight, but if we can't, I certainly understand. I mean, it's always good to have a position.
That just brought to mind when you were talking about the time. Even if Corporal Wilder, whether working as officer in charge or interim police chief, there seems like there's a body of work that she's doing that somebody else will need to step up and do, or there's going to be far too many hours on her plate. And I'm just wondering if you all had had a conversation of who might take from her some of the things she's been doing so she doesn't just end up 25 more hours.
Of course, yeah. Not specifically as far as addressing a person. I mean, we did come up with a schedule for the month of January, which I thought maybe was a little excessive for Diane on a personal level. Just a lot of hours. So there's maybe room in there to do some flexing around so she doesn't get totally beaten to death. But I mean, she is willing to take it on just basically because it's something she wants to do. And I'm not going to speak for her, but you know, she's willing to take on the extra duties and responsibilities because she is committed to the police department and she's committed to the town. So there may be some room in there to fill in some other hours. One of our reserve officers, I believe, gets laid off from his landscaping job for the winter, so he might be able to pick up some of that. We might lose a little bit of coverage in the mornings and maybe make up for it in the afternoon. And it's really 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, because you know, you're as likely to get accidents at 3 in the afternoon as you are at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know that the service will suffer per se by doing that. So, and then there's also the option of looking for another part-time reserve officer to you know, pick up some of that.
It's just that if she's been assisting you, which you had indicated she's been doing in that position, then in my mind, she needs somebody to assist her to offload some of that work, or she's looking at more than 50 hours per week. And
Right.
You can get burned out too.
Right, and I mean, she takes the patrol burden off of me, so I'm dealing with the other stuff. So it would just be a matter of somebody taking some of the patrol burden off of her. But I mean, like I said, I'm not going to speak for her as far as how many hours she thinks she can work. You know, I mean, that's something she certainly can address. But if I can just address one more thing. We had 5 families 2 weeks ago that were able to enjoy Christmas because Diane took it upon herself to do this Stuff the Cruiser program for the 3rd year. I didn't ask her to do it. I didn't mention it to her. I didn't have to remind her, put a note on her desk. She just did it. And these are the types of things that when I came here were not happening. It's one of the things that I stressed. We were going to get more involved with the community. And Diane has, you know, taken that philosophy and run with it. And I think the fact that 5 families, I don't know how many children, were able to enjoy Christmas because of the efforts of Diane and the Asheville Police Department, I think that speaks a lot to where we've come in the last 3 years. So I'm not saying Diane needs a pat on the back or needs to be rewarded for that, but I think she needs to be recognized for the fact that she's just not out there hassling the motoring public, stopping cars, giving out tickets, because that's not what we do. We're engaged with the community. We're a partner to the community. And like I said, when I came in here almost 3 years ago, just mentioned that's the way I wanted to go, and she took it and ran with it. So I think she deserves some recognition for that, so.
How about, rather than having nothing on the table, that as a result of this conversation, I would rather see us vote to have her be officer in charge, and why don't we make it the month of January? We can look at it again later. Ron will be back. Clearly, the two of you can vote in a direction that you think you want it to go, even if I have a different opinion. We still have somebody in charge. I would like to look to have somebody and start looking to have that other person for some hours to cover for her, because it looks like too many hours, too much work, plus anything else she might want to do with her life. It's too many hours for one person to take on, even if she's willing to do it. But I don't think that's fair.
Diane,
Yeah.
would you come up so I don't have to be looking around Bill Croman's head? I mean, sometimes it seems like maybe we're talking about you like you're not even in the room.
Kind of felt a little bit like that.
So what do you feel about the chiefs? I know you've discussed it, and I mean, the other night you nodded to me but didn't really verbalize a whole lot. I mean, what are your thoughts on the idea of shouldering this responsibility?
I'd like to try. I think I can do a good job. I handled the fall festival without an issue. That was one of the biggest things at National Night Out, and we are doing National Night Out again this year. I worked, before I came here, I worked 2 or 3 other jobs besides my full-time job. I'm a worker. I always have been. The hours don't scare me because I've done them before. I've always worked I always worked at the dispatch center for the last 19 years, but I've always had extra jobs on the side. It's just the way I swing. So the extra hours don't scare me, but I would like the challenge of taking on and being there for the town.
Another valuable part of the police department is a fellow by the name of Charlie White. Has there been any discussion about what it would be like?
You want to ask him?
Charlie's here.
And I mean, I think that's an issue that I don't believe that can't be addressed, but I think it's something that has been addressed. I mean, that needs to be addressed at some point is one spouse supervising another.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any discussion about that?
Charlie and I have discussed that. He said it'd be just like home.
I understand that response, by the way. It can be tough.
He has a feeling on what, if it was a problem, what he would do about it, what we would do about it. Right?
We can work together.
How many hours are you working, Charlie? Depends on the week or
In Ashfield?
phase of the moon? Yeah.
I very seldom work in Ashfield.
He works like...
He's our go-to guy.
Yeah, when we needed, I was at Lake Champlain last year, this is just a for instance. I was at Lake Champlain last year and I got a call that they needed a detail officer for the motorcycles that were coming through. I called all the officers, nobody. I called Charlie, I said, can you go do this? He was right there.
Well, that clears up some discussion that, that people might be thinking that. I'm just thinking ahead.
I understand.
Yeah, he's not scheduled for a regular shift on a regular basis. He basically, if something comes up, like we had something, a bicycle thing came through town a couple months ago, and we had nobody else, and called Charlie and says, hey, I need somebody for 2 hours. We had the Dr. Pike's funeral a few weeks ago, and he came in just so that we had a presence that day. But, I mean, he wasn't scheduled. I called him a couple days before and said, hey, are you around? Can you do this? And it does, so that's the type of thing.
One of our officers wants we have an officer on Friday night and Saturday night. One of our officers wants Saturday night off They work every Saturday and every Friday. Charlie says he'll fill in for them, that's what he does. And somebody wants a day off, he's there and fills in.
You can see by the discussion that we're having, and being Ashfield, no one should be surprised that there's always several differences of opinion. If this gentleman was here, there probably would be another opinion. How are you going to work around your day job?
My
Your
3 to 11 job?
Your regular job?
Um,
Because I'd say it to you privately, but it doesn't do any harm in saying it publicly, is, you know, don't give up your day job, because you don't know,
I can't.
there can't be any guarantees as to what the
I have
outcome will
mouths
be
to
on this.
feed. 4-legged mouths to feed, I can't give up my day job. Right now, the way I figured, I did the schedule for January, I did it, me working 7 to 1. That gives me a little bit of cushion in the middle, so if I have an incident going on or something, it'll get over, hopefully. Or I can call Charlie in at 2, so I can get to work for 2:45. So, I'm not giving up my day job. I would eventually, you know, like to work for a career in Ashfield, but not giving up my day job.
You understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also just wanted to reiterate what I said a couple weeks ago, that having somewhat of a conscience, I'm willing to help out with whatever I need to help out with. I know we're getting to budget time, and you know, I'm willing to help out with that. I don't know what incarnation that would take on, because I understand there are some restrictions on my ability to do that once ties are severed. So I mean, we can maybe talk about that. But you know, I'm willing to do something to kind of help out throughout the budget and transition and things like that. And I've already told Diane, if things go that way, I'm only a phone call away. So you know, I'm willing to help her out as much as I can and help the town out. I mean, you guys came through for me 3 years ago, and I'm not going to leave you know, swinging. So
We went to the police chief's meeting in Deerfield a couple weeks ago, and all the chiefs there offered help if anybody needed any help. I have a lot of support.
The officer in charge, if I hadn't spoken with town council and asked for an opinion on it, I probably wouldn't have a problem with that. I do believe that town council made a fairly strong case for not doing that, as far as some powers and authority. Officer in charge, those powers and authority would be transferred onto the select board. And I don't really believe that is anything that, any place that I necessarily want to go. And I guess the question, as far as making it a month, what
Next meeting.
what would be the advantage of, well, no, I'm talking about your proposal. If there's a way to put it to bed, I was wondering what the difference between a month and when the position is fulfilled. What, filling it for a month, what I'm thinking is that we get to go through this whole discussion again in a month, instead of using that time to start the process of trying to figure out where we need to go and being more productive that way.
Well, I think also it gives Ron a chance to weigh in. And if his opinion is as strong as yours is to do interim police chief, obviously both of you can vote that way. He's not here.
Right.
But you said you didn't want to be police chief on Saturday. So I was looking for a compromise that you and I could agree to. Instead of having to come back in 2 weeks, had I come up at the end of January, thought it through. I do strongly believe, in spite of all of her good intention to do all those hours, that's not the best idea for any member of the personnel of the town. Somehow we've got to get somebody doing some of those patrol hours to free you up so you 20 more hours. For
One of our
25,
officers-
you're doing
one of-
police chief type work.
One of our officers had said he'll do more hours if needed.
Right. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how you can work it and still have a life of your own and do the best job for Ashfield. And I'm really thinking that an interim acting police chief would be 25 hours a week. And then if you felt like you wanted to assign yourself some patrol duty at your current rate of pay, that's how I would see the mechanics of it. What you guys are talking about now, I mean, it seems like a lot of hours, especially with your other job. I mean, you'd be putting in as much time as the guys plowing snow and sanding the roads
She said she's
every week.
doing 19 to 25 already.
Every
And
week.
now we're talking about 20 to 25 more. That's what I'm
Right.
saying. Quickly, something's got to get off that schedule.
Right. And I bet if the word goes out, there's part-time police officers in other communities that'll be ready to sign up once they know what's going on.
I've got
I mean,
10
that's a
applications
gut-
downstairs.
That's a gut feeling that
Yeah.
I've seen work out in the past.
I don't want to give up all my patrol hours, because I like being out there with the public. I like seeing the people. I like doing the patrolling as well.
I wasn't looking for all of them to be given up. Yeah, it was not a swap,
Oh,
just
okay.
Right.
25 and 25 is 50. It's too many.
Right. So I think there's a pendulum's going to swing back and forth there a little bit. Paul, did I see your hand up? I didn't
Yes,
want
sir, you did. Maybe it was a statement of the obvious, but the concern about the hours worked, that's the first test of her administrative abilities. That's her responsibility to allocate that time and find someone else to work with. For somebody else to get involved in micromanaging it, I think is not a very intelligent thing. She's responsible, let her run with it. That's the choice. Let her do it. She can find someone to do it for you, to cover the time. That's it.
Well, I do think we are at a handicap tonight with just two of us. Because,
We don't have the third member to weigh in.
right, and be able to build those ideas around. I really think that we could make the decision once and then work towards what the final product's going to be, and not have to revisit it in the meantime. So let me ask you this. What is your schedule on Thursday?
This week, personnel board meeting
How
at
about-
6:30.
Do you work your day job Thursday? What I was thinking is adjourning this meeting and not posting a new meeting, adjourning it to come back to this. If we could do it like Thursday after or some such thing as that.
Yeah, no, I can't do it. We could put something in
Have it
place
Thursday.
tonight and move it to Monday, and have that be the only thing on the agenda Monday, and go through this week, the 6th. Put an officer in charge, so you're not in charge, and then the three of us can meet, and have that be the only thing on the agenda for Monday the 6th, at 7 o'clock, and we'll get the weekend to go through, and then we get the third member to participate. His opinions and concerns.
Well, what's your schedule tomorrow? Oh, that's New Year's Eve. I won't be in any condition to work on this. I might agree to anything tomorrow night. No. It probably won't make any difference.
We could probably catch, is Ron's vet taking him out of town?
No, it's something from
Oh, so we could see if we could catch it for Monday.
or tomorrow afternoon.
So you work on Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
I understand. Just like we were talking about with Diane, right? We have our own personal lives too, right?
Right.
Thursday and Friday would be better for me.
Yeah, let's post a meeting, instead of having an adjournment, we'll post a meeting Monday. Monday.
I can make it later. I mean, 7:30.
7 o'clock, what we'll do is 7 o'clock, we'll have this on the agenda.
Yep. As long as we're on the
And approving the minutes that we're not gonna get to tonight,
Oh, okay, we can put those till then too.
because Ron
Sure.
was there for that meeting, all right?
7 PM,
7 PM.
this item, and
January 6th.
Monday at 7.
And in the interim of that,
Should we make that the first thing though, and then the minutes second? As opposed to everybody reading Okay.
there won't be many changes to the minutes on mine. So we're not hanging completely in limbo over the weekend. How about if that was a motion that you made, how about if it was modified to make Diane officer in charge from the 4th through the 6th, and then we'll make a final decision what to do at that point.
If
How's that?
we change it to the 3rd, and whatever hour he ends on the 3rd.
That's fine,
So she starts right.
that's fine.
Would it make life easier for you guys if I just did it through Sunday?
No, I think it's
Okay.
all right.
That's okay.
I think it's
All right, I'm just trying to,
If your day ends at 5 o'clock on the 3rd, then I would say on the 3rd at 5.
You keep hanging on and we'll drag out a decision for God knows how long.
just trying to accommodate time.
So is that,
So she's going to be, let's say, would your time normally end at 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock on
4 o'clock?
Friday.
4 PM, and then you're going to take it to Monday
You're off on those ones?
through Monday?
midnight, let's say, depending what we do with Monday. January 6th.
I'm not putting words in your mouth, but if that's a motion, I will second that.
Yes, that's a motion. Yes.
Okay. All right?
Yep.
That sound good? So, motion, a second, any other discussion? It seems like we beat it to death, Paulette. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So, we're gonna post a meeting for Monday.
First meeting for Monday?
It's the only thing we'll do except approve the minutes that I have no intention of getting to tonight. Okay.
They're the minutes from the 16th.
Okay, well, it's as far as we could get tonight,
And
but we're gonna keep charging on.
Yep.
Anything else from the police department that
No, I mean, just to follow up, I kind of brought it up about the toy, the stuff, the cruiser went very well, 5 families were served, we have some leftover toys, because we only got 5 names from the school, so we have a little bit left over, but just wanted to go on record thanking everybody for their donations, and glad we were able to do it.
I was glad, it was nice to be done. I noticed a lot of support out in front of the store. I mean, if they didn't bring presents,
Yep.
Cash.
it was a good time, they had cash.
Yep.
Cash is good.
Cash is good.
They did very well.
as part of this, since this is your last meeting, I did print out the email you sent around. So rather than part of the liaison, or if you want to make it part of your report, I printed that out to include, so we have it as a document with our meeting minutes.
We talked about that 2 weeks
We
ago at the meeting.
did, but we didn't have this with us. We had a conversation, and I noticed it.
It was on my email at that point, yes.
Right. So I thought it was worth printing out, and making it a document if anybody wanted to see it, that it
For
was.
the
Yeah.
camera. Okay, camera. Warren,
So it could be a document for tonight.
you got something quick, Warren? I see you
Yeah, I
flying
just-
around back there.
I just wanted to mention, I've worked under, or with 9 police chiefs, the corporal would be the 10th. And I'd just like to say that Chief Droney was probably one of the better ones we've had. And I'm looking forward to working with Diane. And I'm also pledging my help to her through this thing. We're all trained in First, 4th, 6th, and 14th Amendment, people's rights and what have you. I'm now a state certified animal control officer. Anyway, so I wanted the corporal to know that I am around if she needs a hand with whatever.
Thank you.
And I think she'll do fine. She's been here. It took me 16 years before I became chief. But I think Diane could probably do that with no problem.
Thank you.
And so I think at this point, that this is our best avenue.
Very good.
One second. When we accepted your resignation, your regrets, I'd like to say thank you very much for the time you've been here.
Thank you. I appreciate
Sorry
it.
to see you leave, but thank you very much for all the hard work.
Saved me a lot of gas. But and I just wanted to just go on the record thanking Select Board. I'm sorry Ron isn't here, but you guys have been very supportive of me, this board, and the prior boards. And just like to thank the residents of Ashfield for your support and your help and acceptance of me, you know, being an outsider from Connecticut. Never saw anything but support from everybody, and just met some tremendous people up here. And despite the saving and the drive, I'm going to miss coming up here and fighting with people on 91 every day. But no, it's been a great opportunity for me. It was always my lifelong ambition to be a chief of police, and even being a chief in a small town is still a pretty good accomplishment, I think. So just want to thank everybody and wish you all the best. And I'll be up here next Columbus Day weekend as an observer for Fall Festival. So
There you go.
you sold me on that. So my wife enjoyed it when she's come up here a couple of times. So we'll be up here.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, MJ Adams.
She said she would be here, she said she had another meeting first, but that she hoped that she would be here by 8:30.
By 8:30, and it's 8:38.
I mean, I do know that an email is late as 5 something, that she was going to be. So,
Oh,
we have some new business that was, just came in, which is we need to sign a Green Communities contract extension. I have a copy in your file, because it's the chair that signs it. And I don't know if Brian wants to address it. I've talked to both Brian and Mary Kigley, and this is just something that we'll get out of here tonight. I believe it was at their end that
must be the ticket that says something here. So we're
kind of came in.
we're a different shade of green according to their timeline, is that it?
Well, the original contract ends on the 31st, and we need an extension because we still got money to spend, and it would be good to spend it. Sorry, it's kind of rush here, but the state people lost it. We asked them for the extension back in early November, and it got prepared and never got sent to us. I prompted them 2 or 3 weeks ago and didn't get a response, and suddenly, I think it was Friday afternoon, I got a call from them. Oh, we got to get this signed.
Means you got a call on Friday after Christmas from them.
What's the maximum amount of time they let you have an extension for?
Well, they're giving us a year. That's all I think that's all we
I know
discussed.
we only had a month to spend money.
So, the original contract was for the 141.
Yeah. Yeah. The only change is to extend the date to a full year.
I'm trying to find that on the contract, I guess, is what I'm...
The new end date is somewhere down in the middle, I think.
Yes. Contract performance shall terminate as of December 30th, 2014. Do the green community feel that they can spend that money
Yep,
in 12 calendar months?
yep, as long as we don't start digging out underneath some other building.
I mean, is 141 the balance that's left?
No.
So this is extending it so we can have more money to spend. Is
Should
there
we
a
vote?
problem?
You want to make a motion?
Sure, go ahead. Yes, I'm making a motion to do this contract extension for the town of Ashfield through the Department of Energy Resources for an additional 12 months, ending December 30th, 2014.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we signed it under the wire. That'll be the check. That'll be the challenge in a couple of days. For the next couple of months is getting ready to go 14.
Do they let you fax this to them?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna scan and email it tonight.
Oh, okay.
Tomorrow, I'll let them know that hard copies of it.
Yeah, ideally it can be signed, select board chair and scanned, returned to me by email and fax.
I'm still fussing him.
I almost wonder if we should just change the way the chair,
Well, I think we'll just go
move the
with
whole room a quarter turn. All right.
We'll be good.
Well, here's some mail. I mean, it's probably stealing a little bit of Ron's thunder since he worked so hard on it, but it's from Department of Housing and Community Development. Dear Chairman, on behalf of Governor Deval Patrick, I am pleased to award the town of Ashfield a fiscal year 2013 disaster recovery grant in the amount of $375,000 from the Massachusetts Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery. Massachusetts Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program. These federal funds are provided by the Commonwealth for the Smith Branch Road Reconstruction Project. So we've been discussing this and waiting for it. It was always kind of by hearing about it that it was coming. But this is for actually fixing the road, not just fixing the road on Smith Road.
Oh, okay, when you said Branch Road, Smith Branch.
Smith Branch.
Okay,
There
Yes.
it is.
that's good.
We were just reading the good news about the $375,000.
Great, thank you.
So, should be all in good shape. Come right up front. This fan could start at any moment, and then you'd be miming as far as I'm
Is that the
concerned.
end of that? Or-
Yeah, it just said this award is contingent on the town's execution of the grant contract. Details of the grant will be included in the grant contract. So we're going to set a contract ready to come.
Right, well, first you have to do the application. First you have to sign the paperwork for the application, and I gave you some, I sent along samples of it. They're having some trouble with the grant software at the state, so we haven't been able to print out the specific paperwork that you need to sign, put original signatures on to enter into the system. But you can see that the funds have been earmarked, they're here, they're ready for us to use as soon as we get the paperwork ready, and we're good to go on that.
And if you end up with real problems for $375,000, I'll carve my name into a stone tablet if you bring it to me. All right?
Well, I gave you the exact samples. What you see is actually on the cover sheet is the budget.
Oh, okay.
And the certifications that you have to do is the chief officials of the community, just certifying that you won't violate civil rights.
So you won't have to make a separate appointment. You'll be able to get this paperwork to us and we can...
Absolutely, yes. That
Don't
was
donate
my
the
goal.
stone.
You don't want.
You'll donate the stone for the stone tablet. Oh, excellent. It's good to have friends in the right places.
Although you're right on my way home from Holly, and I was just at Holly tonight, so this was on my way home. But yes, this is what I would ask is that you go ahead and.
But you were in West Holly.
Yeah.
That's a ways. West Holly and East Holly, that's it.
But yes, my hope was that we'd have the clean, legitimate paperwork printed out by today, and then I would have it with me, but I spoke with Carl at DHCD, and they're still having glitches. They're hoping to get it solved, and as soon as it does, we'll get you those fresh paperwork.
Do we need to vote anything for you tonight to go with that application that's not here?
I would recommend that you make a vote authorizing the chairman of the board of selectmen to sign the application for the disaster recovery CDBG funds. And that way, it's done. Send you the paperwork and you can.
Yeah, please. Okay, so I move that the select board authorize the chair of the select board to sign the application for the CDBG-DR program, which is Massachusetts Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program, as soon as that application paperwork is available in the town of Ashford to be signed.
Thank you.
I'll second that. Any other discussion? I think it's great. I wish Ron was here. Ron's not here. He's expecting a grandchild.
Ah, that's great.
He thought that might be a little more exciting.
Yes, and I just wanted to especially acknowledge Ron's role in identifying the project and bringing it to the attention of state officials early on, so it was included in the first round. And you're very lucky to have someone who was right on top of it.
Thanks for being there to work with him on it. That's great. Any other discussion?
I vote for him, but I probably can't.
For what?
He'd vote yes.
You can't?
Take up your sign.
Oh. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Unanimous. All right. So then you're here for something else too?
Yes, for the
development strategy?
The community development strategy, which is the planning document that we work with towns to pull together and submit in advance of their community development block grant application. We've been here a couple times talking about it. I've been working with Mary on it. I must admit that I've had a couple of technology glitches, so I don't have a final form of it. I sent you the edited one. So if you'd like to, I don't know that you had the chance to use it, or to see it, because I only pulled it together this evening.
Should I go check if there's something there I can print out and bring in?
You know what I would actually like to suggest is that I share with you some of the edits that I added in. It seemed as if you were involved in more planning activities than was listed in the community development strategy. I looked at the Franklin Regional Council on Governments, their annual report, and it sounded like there was some more meat and potatoes that we could add in, and quite honestly, that's the work that I did, is I took some additional elements and put it in. When you're doing the community development strategy for the block grant, you want to make sure that you're sort of tapping all the sustainable development principles. And so there might be some language there that you might want to edit. I would ask that you share it with the selectmen.
You need to tap what? All the sustainable?
The state's planning document has 10 principles of sustainable planning and development. And your community development strategy is supposed to in some way respond to all those principles, either that they're not relevant or that this is what you're doing. And there was a lot of material written. There were some gaps that I filled in using some of the information that I saw coming out of the out of the Franklin Council of Governments annual report in terms of the work that they had done with Ashfield, just to make it a more complete document.
Because this draft you have here is revisited what we had previously and changed some dates on it for the most part?
Yep, and took out some, with MJ, we took out some things that were already completed and put in some items that have occurred since or are ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is there are some others?
Yes, there was the planning process, and it might be helpful for you to put a little more detail in on the town's involvement in the sustainable Franklin County planning process. I know that that was a county-wide planning effort, but we could put just a little more specific detail in terms of the town's involvement.
And so that I can understand, you've sent those comments to me so I can incorporate those.
Yeah.
What do we need next?
I sent those to you, and I got the Word document from you, so I was able to plug them into the Word document. You can very, very clearly see the recommendations that I made, and you can, but at some point in the next week or so, or in the next 2 weeks, we need to have you approve the final document. And once it's approved, then we send it up to DHCD before January 14th.
So if you're coming back on the 13th, because we're gonna have
I am coming back on
something
the 13th.
scheduled then, and so if the board approves it on the 13th, so
That should be fine, I think that should be fine. Cutting it a little close, but I'd rather have it thorough and complete rather than have those gaps in it. And then the other piece I wanted to discuss,
While we're on this, Mr. Cronin, are you involved at FERCog on the county planning?
Well, I'm aware of it. I read
You weren't
it,
involved directly with it?
not directly. I've read the plan. The executive committee had to sign off on it. It was a lot of work by a lot of people talking about sustainability in general countywide. And it sets out a framework, and it would be advantageous to the towns if it managed to find places to fit into the framework so that it looks as if the county is working together on this. But it was done by the planning department and signed off on by their advisory board and by the executive committee. So
I'm looking for, my personal challenge is to find 3 places where we talk about sustainability where the definition is even remotely alike. I think sustainability is a word that they use so much it doesn't have any meaning.
yeah, the governor came out a while ago with his sustainability plan, and the idea is to sort of
And the next governor will come out with his. I'm not putting you on the spot. I just find that it's
we
something.
did go over the 10 points and made reference to it, but you're saying we should have more.
well, we didn't hit all the 10 points, and I didn't realize that until I was reading it through more closely.
Okay. And then I realized we had to hit all 10 points.
So the document that you made these additions to has been sent to Mary today?
Yes, the edited, yes, I put my edits onto it.
And so then she can take and forward that to the select board, so we would have it
Yeah, we should.
this week.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know about this week, I'm taking time, but by next week, we're going to have this on the agenda for the 13th.
It is
Are you
possible.
gonna be tomorrow?
I have scheduled, I wasn't going to be, but I'll probably come in some, but I'm trying not to add
Well,
more.
if you could just take MJ's and email it to us.
That's all I meant. Yeah.
All right, or I can incorporate them and send them to you
I think
before the
she's-
13th.
Aren't they incorporated already?
They are, because that's why you sent me the Word document, because I couldn't do it
Right,
as
so
a
just send it
PDF.
that way,
Yeah.
you can take a look at it.
And it's
Okay.
it's very clear which
It
my
would be
edits are.
on me next Monday if we all read it and if it was a quick thumbs up, thumbs down to say that we're on board or we're not on board. It would, if she emails it, we'll have it.
Right, we gotta give Ron some time. He doesn't.
Well, you'll get an email to him and then he'll know.
Yeah, I can let him know, but shall I add
Instead
that
of-
to the agenda for Monday the 6th, just so you're free to
Just, you
discuss
can
it?
just,
Maybe we shouldn't, because in case there is something that between these two ladies they want to discuss and add before the 13th or alter before the 13th.
well, why don't we just take a look at it? We can
We
put it
can-
on there and we can say yes, no, skip it, put it away,
So how about if I put
burn
3
it.
CBS draft comments after minutes?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Thank you so
But
much.
great, just,
I mean, if we're coming in anyway.
I wasn't looking to make you any work on it.
On an extra Monday night, we may as well do something.
And one of the things that I wanted to talk with you briefly about this evening is that as we've talked about putting together the grant application, one of the things that we need to find is a second activity. We've talked with the town about, we talked about elderly transit a little, we talked about handicap accessibility for the community house, community center. Those 2 activities really haven't moved forward in any substantial way. So we're looking for the second activity to make the grant more competitive. One of the things that we have been working on as a secondary activity is to include some sort of fuel assistance supplement here as the social service component to put together into the grant. Peter Wingate is here with me this evening.
Hi, Peter.
Just to share briefly with you our sense of the need out here and to just present some information into the public record about why we think this is a worthy second activity. We know that in the 4 communities that we're going to be working with the grant, Heath, Hawley, Charlemont, and Ashfield, that delivered fuel is the primary source of fuel for most of the people in those 4 communities. That those wood and oil and propane have continued to remain pretty expensive fuels, while the price of natural gas and electricity have at least stabilized or gone down a little. So we're seeing that folks out in this region are disproportionately impacted by the energy prices remaining high. That at the same time, talking with Peter, who runs the fuel assistance for the region, he says the demand has gone up, funding has stayed, and the funding was reduced.
Funding's actually been reduced pretty dramatically over the last 4 years.
Before we get into that, take me back just a second. You said the idea of doing something at the community hall for handicapped access, that's a non-starter, or that's...
It's not a non-starter. We were looking at the possibility of doing a small planning grant to get them moving along on it. One of the starting places, though, is that the state will ask you what's the status of your 504 transition plan, and I think we struggled to figure out where actually it was on that. So before you go and fund planning for handicap accessibility for a non-public building, even though it's very publicly used, there's this issue of what's the town doing with their own planning process. And I think that we didn't come to a conclusion on where we were with the transition.
Well, we haven't completed our own transition process.
And I think that was the difficulty that I was facing is that we were starting to move forward and getting close to really needing to make decisions about the activities that were going to go into the grant. And it felt like we were missing some of the early steps, or that the town didn't have the 504 transition plan for their own buildings. So it would be difficult to make an argument that
Do we think we even heard of the 504 transition plan?
So that was, not that it's a non-starter, it's just we didn't have a good place to stand to move forward on additional community planning around handicap accessibility because we didn't have good documentation or a starting place where we've done what we needed to do with the municipally owned buildings that are dictated by the transition.
Well, and that's not it's not owned by the town, but it's owned by the community.
No. And it sounds like a very worthy project. And that's why we were looking at to try to find a way to get some planning money to help start that process, to identify what needs to be done.
I think we all would love to see anything that building be more usable. Bill, you got something quick on that?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of that planning and execution. For instance, when we made Town Hall accessible with the 2 lifts and the ramps, and when we did the new highway department, it was designed under the building requirements, so that is completely handicap accessible. The library has a lift which occasionally needs repair, but it is in there. I'm not really aware that there are many shortcomings in terms of accessibility for town buildings at this point. So I don't know.
So maybe it needs to address that building.
Needs to address the community center building?
Is that what is lacking in that?
I think where I got stalled was the town's transition plan. We couldn't put our fingers on it. We couldn't say with certainty that it was done.
I've seen a town transition plan. I think that I was operating under the understanding that that we still have things we may need to do at town hall to complete or increase accessibility, because some of the things we've done are no longer sufficient.
that's a possibility. All I know is that anything that we've done from the treatment plant forward from that, so we're talking about 1992 or 3, accessibility has always been part of the plan. So
Right, and I know the
a lot of
highway.
the transition has already taken place.
Len Shudak, the highway is all set, it's really town hall or.
And I don't want us to get off on that right now, because I understand that the clock is ticking on the grant process and getting all this done. But if there's something that we need to do, it would be my opinion, personally, I hope it would be that of the board, is that when there's another round, that we would like to have things in place. If there's money available to the community, that would be a place that I would think it would be well suited. So if there's something we need to do, I don't want it to be missed again.
Right, and I'm a little confused why they're tied together, why we can't address that community hall separate from this building. Like Mary was saying, town hall.
I think you can address another community building. The issue is that the state will ask you, what's the status of your planning with your own facilities? And that's what we weren't able to put our hands on. It sounds like, talking with folks, it sounds like work's been done, but there seems to be this thing called the transition plan that the state had asked towns to do, the 504 transition plan. And
So I may have misunderstood you because I know we've held back from doing some other things in town hall because it would require additional focus that way. It may be that the transition plan, however it stands, is all that's needed. I may have understood you to be saying if there was work still to do in town hall, that would be a problem.
No. I think that my understanding is that the state requires that the transition plan, they would want to see the transition plan done for Ashfield-owned facilities. Not implemented, but at least a planning process where the town says, this is our town hall, these are our other municipally owned buildings, and this is our plan.
So not implemented. So let me take one more look and see.
And if we are, if we have that, then we can make the argument that we've done the planning for the municipally owned properties, and that this is a community property that has very extensive community use, and we'd like to do some planning for that also. That I can make the argument on that.
Because I think there's been discussion about using that at different times for some senior functions, but then there is no handicap access.
You've got to walk up or down to.
And I believe that's not a problem when you go over to Shelburne. So that's my point. So sure.
I think what I heard you say is that money, if it was used for community hall, would only be for a study, not for money to actually do the project.
In this year, yes, the only thing that we could put, what we could see funding for would be to do a little planning study to say what's the best way to achieve handicap accessibility in that. So it would just be the first steps to get moving along in that process. It would not, at this moment, get it all the way to full handicap accessibility or architectural barrier.
Are any of the other 3 towns that were involved with this particular application, are they all at this time in favor of going in the direction of fuel assistance?
2 of the 3 have actively voted in support of that. The other one, we're actually having we've been having a conversation with them about a little planning study around some dry hydrants that they have. So as I was out meeting with the communities, my job is to listen to you and to hear your needs and to try to be as responsive as possible. And it sounded as though I was out here that I was meeting with different communities and they had different issues at play. It seemed like a little planning grant for a couple of the communities might have made sense. For you, clearly, and we can still look at this. I mean, we're a little constrained in terms of time, so we really need to put the full court press on to see whether or not we have this transition plan. To do a little bit of planning money so we can get it to take a look at your community center.
It's the fuel assistance you're talking about. The only one I've seen like an application for would be one if you lived in Greenfield. It's called Community Action or something like that. You fill out a questionnaire and you apply and somebody reviews the numbers and allocate some money. This would be similar to that?
This would be a supplement to that. What we're proposing is for people who are eligible under the block grant low and moderate income range, that's up to 80% of the HUD median income for the Franklin County region. The fuel assistance only serve people who earn up to 60% of the state median income. So there's about a 20% gap there between people who are not eligible for fuel assistance but are eligible under the block grant program. We're looking to provide some level of fuel assistance to them, and also to provide some funding for an emergency fuel delivery if people in those income ranges were without fuel. As I was saying, because of the delivered fuel issue, you don't have the advantage of being able to arrange a 12-month payment plan, and it becomes a situation where people are out of fuel and have no resources.
And can it be any fuel, so it can be wood or propane or oil?
Oil.
What if it happens to be heated by electric?
With the electric company, no, the electric company, when you heat with electric, you can actually go on a monthly payment plan, and so you can spread the cost of that fuel over 12 months. But you can't do that frequently with oil or wood or propane.
With the electric, you also have the state mandated shutoff protection. So from November 15th to April 1st now, I think it's going to be, they can't shut off your heat if you have somebody who is low income, elder, or child under age 12 months.
So can we have only one number 2, or can we have 2A and 2B? So one is fuel assistance and the other, should the information work out, to get some money to do that first planning phase for community hall for an elevator of some kind. Or handicap access of some kind, sorry.
I need to look at the numbers, but my sense is that we've been looking at the fuel assistance as a program that would serve the 4 communities. And so if we can squeeze out some money to do this planning grant, which I know has been a very widely articulated need here, I would try to do that. I can't make any commitments. Like I said, I haven't seen the final budget, but I certainly hear the need and the desire here.
It would follow the fuel assistance, which makes a certain amount of sense.
Ricky, how do you think the board of directors, I mean, you're on the board, right? There's a board of directors. I mean, MJ's getting this information from the select board, really, for the most part, about doing something for the community hall. I mean, you get the feeling that, maybe you don't want to speak to the entire board, of course, but do you get the feeling that they would be behind that?
Getting some money?
For a study?
A study? I can't answer the question. I would say probably yes, but I've been at personnel boards when they've had their board meetings, so I haven't been to many recently. I went to their last one when they were talking about possibilities, but, you know, Doug Scott, he stays up all night thinking about possibilities. So.
Well, that's my only thing with a study, is that you can pay money for a study and then wait, and it comes up to be very expensive, where 3 or 4 people in the hill towns can kind of sit around and scratch their nose and come up and say, well, you know, if we could do this and this, and it ends up being done at a lot less money. So.
That's true. I will share with you, if you're looking for block grant funds to pay for the handicap accessibility improvements down the line, you're going to need bid-ready plans and specs that would meet the state's guidelines. So.
And that's what your project would?
We would not be able to get to that level. I think we'd probably be doing a very early sort of feasibility study about what are the best approaches and some very preliminary cost estimates. So it would shove you in that direction. It would give you a little expert guidance from people who do that type of work, architects.
It would make a good job for consultants and engineers. Small job.
But you might be able, once you sometimes have something like that, some foundations might help you move along in terms of that accessibility. Makes it much more credible.
Well, this sounds like a really good night to talk about keeping warm. So that's what you're here for, right, Peter?
This time of year, it's a good topic. I'm not very interesting in August.
No, nobody wants to see you then, right?
Right, so last year, we served about 58, we served 58 households in Ashfield. I can say from experience, if there are 58 households we served, I'm sure there are many more that would be eligible for the program that have not signed up for whatever reasons. People sometimes have their own reasons and choose not to sign up. Some people don't know we exist. Some people think it's going to be harder to sign up than it actually is. For first-time applicants, they do need to come down to Greenfield for the most part to sign up. If anybody wanted an appointment, they called 774-2310. We can get you an appointment within a couple of days at this point. I think one of the other things we could look at long-term is trying to do more directed outreach out here. We could have an Ashfield Day. We could take applications one day a year or a couple days a year right here or any place else in town. One of the things MJ and I had really identified was the really gap in funding. The federal funding for fuel assistance has gone down dramatically. Kind of to put it in perspective, when I first got into this about 25 years ago, the fuel assistance benefit for an eligible household was $750. That's back when oil was $1 a gallon. Fuel assistance pretty much paid everybody's winter heat. Now the fuel assistance benefit, the maximum benefit is $950, and oil is close to $4 a gallon. So kind of fuzzy math, I'm afraid, but we're looking at fuel assistance covering about 30% of somebody's winter heating bill, or using some statistics that I wouldn't want to bet my life on, but they get the idea out there. About a $1,400 to $1,500 shortfall for any eligible family. So that's the kind of the funding we're looking at. We also have a situation where we have people who have benefits left over that are stranded. We can't get them to them. On average, in the 4 towns that we're looking at, there's about $70 stranded in their account that we can't get to somebody because you can't get $70 of oil delivered, obviously. Somebody needs to get 150-gallon minimum delivery, which I did some real quick math, which is, I think, $550. So if we have $70, they have to come up with $480. A lot of people just don't have that $480. What they do, we don't know for sure. Some people certainly have wood stoves and they're okay. Some people might be using wood stoves that are not safe to use, but they're using them anyway. Certainly we find people using unsafe space heaters, making decisions that aren't always made well when you're cold. So we're looking at that gap funding.
$70 doesn't even buy very much high sulfur coal, does it?
We have a couple of people on coal. I don't know if they're here in Asheville, but we still pay for coal.
So the design of the program would be to work with Peter's program so that people who have stranded benefits are able to fully use their benefits by providing a supplement to their final delivery. To assist people who are above Peter's income guidelines, so not eligible for fuel assistance, but are within the block grant fuel or income guidelines, and then to provide for an emergency fuel delivery if there's somebody who gets delivered fuel who is absolutely out straight and doesn't have any fuel.
So we said the current maximum is $950, and we're talking about filling a gap. Is there a number that we would have in mind? Because obviously, if we're trying to get assistance and money, there's got to be some numbers in here. So what would that mean for somebody that was getting $950, but it doesn't cover everything? Is there a fixed amount you're looking at that gap would be?
Do you know?
Well, the math I came up with, the math I did was all for the 4 towns combined, so keep that in mind. The average payment last year was $750 for the 4-town region. The state has determined that the average delivered fuel household that receives fuel assistance, winter's heating bill is $2,200. That's much lower than it is. I could bore you with the details of why the state isn't doing this well, but I don't want to use up your time on that. So with those figures, it's showing about a $1,400 shortfall per household. So if you wanted to do the math specifically for Asheville, I guess you could do the 58 households times the 1455 and come up with the shortfall.
Yeah.
And then the other figure you're talking about was the people who are just over income for the programs I run, the 61 to 80% of median income.
I was thinking that $2,200 is probably correct if you've got people that are only living in 2 rooms.
Exactly. I'll give you the short.
I think about our house, we don't.
The short version of this
your
is.
house you heat, but there's one thing to heat a room and another thing to be comfortable in it. And that's a discussion my wife and I have quite often.
And quite often, a lot of people, if their fuel assistance is $950, that was their winter heating bill. That was their winter heating usage. So that gets factored into our overall average. The average isn't $2,200 because anybody's heating their house correctly. They might be sitting in a cold, dark house, and it's dragging down the average. So I don't find it a very reliable or useful figure. I've been arguing with the state over this for 25 years, and obviously I'm not very persuasive because I came that close once. I really did.
Well, I think you're pretty persuasive tonight as far as the need, being here on the night that's started out chilly and it's getting cold.
Did we turn that heat off?
I didn't hear it come on. I turned it up a little.
I think you've answered my question. It's about $1,400, but the secondary piece of it you just stated was, if I didn't qualify originally for that $750, I might now be qualifying for up to maybe $2,200. So I went from maybe nothing to something more significant, or I only had $750 and now I have potentially this additional $14.
Yeah, I think that we're not going to be able to fully fill the unneeded gap, the unfilled gap. We're going to push into it a little by making sure that they are able to fully take, for fuel assistance folks to be able to fully use their benefits by supplementing what they get so that there's no stranded benefit. Whatever is allocated to them, they can fully use it. Will make up the gap between what they have in their account and the balance of what it would cost to get a last delivery.
So kind of put that in perspective. Right now, the average, everything's averages, so it's not any one house, but the average is about $70 of stranded funds. That means that $70 per household at the end of the year gets shipped back to Boston. It's unused, even though somebody's sitting in a cold house. And that's the shame of the way the program is set up.
So you said we're use the fuel assistance to do that. Would it also do anything more than that? A person that didn't qualify at all?
The person who doesn't qualify for fuel assistance would qualify for some sort of assistance. Peter and I need to work on the numbers a little, but I would imagine that it would be something probably similar to 50% of the benefit that they would get if they were eligible. So if $950 is the benefit, under fuel assistance, we'd probably be looking to do $475 for the folks who are above his income guidelines but less than mine, and then have a reserve fund for people who are just straight out for that emergency fuel delivery that you just need every so often.
And you really don't know what the numbers are. I think we probably need to be a little careful with it until you get a grant.
Yes.
Until you have funding and see how many applicants you have. I mean, you have to split it up amongst the pool and so forth.
And I also think this is a good opportunity for my organization, Community Action, to try to do a little more outreach. Like I said, we've got 58 households who signed up. I'm sure if we have 58 eligible, there's probably another 50, another 100 that would be eligible, that maybe we can find an easier path for them to sign up.
And one of the things I'll say is that we work very closely with the fuel assistance program as we're running the housing rehab program to make sure that the other programs that they run around weatherization and heating system improvements can dovetail with the housing rehab program that we do. So when we're out here visiting a household, trying to work with them, that we're making a significant impact.
So what do you need from us? A vote, or we need to talk about this
No,
at the public hearing?
We wanted to share this with you in a public forum. I would say that we'll include it in the revisions for the community development strategy as one of the needs for the community.
I think that's already in there.
I think you put it in, yes. You did.
Maybe pump it up a bit.
But I think that we're all set. You can take a look at the revised community development strategy next Monday. And then we'll be here on the 13th.
On the 13th, we have a CDBG public hearing posted for 7 p.m.
Right.
Sounds like it's very broad. It's something that can help the vast amount of the community. So no, I would say that we're in favor of that. Making that a number 2 project if you feel that that's a good place and the other communities can get behind it. That sounds like a no-brainer.
I'd like to see if we could either what Lynn does to get minutes posted, or if it's something that Ann could put up to get it on the first item on the webpage for
I think it's
Town of Ashfield. I was there, I haven't seen it
I think
there.
it's already on, I think I got an email from Charlie saying it was on.
Not as
The Google
not as a calendar item, but right on the first page,
Yes,
you
no,
know,
that's what I
where
asked
she
him.
normally
That's what I
puts-
asked him to do last week, and I thought I saw an email come through saying that he'd got it there.
Oh, I saw it go up on the calendar.
He
I'll
may
get
have misunderstood, so I'll take a look at it and I'll ask him to change. I did
On the
ask him to
homepage.
put it on the front page.
And maybe he did, maybe I missed it, maybe I looked and then it went up, but
Okay.
if it's on the homepage, great, and if not, it'd be great if it
In
was.
fact, sent Deb an email last week saying that Charlie was going to put it on the homepage, and so somebody come, but I didn't get to go check it, so I'll take a look.
I see everybody sliding their coats and hats on, so I was wondering if maybe we needed some assistance with the boiler. The furnace just started again.
So yeah, I've been looking around on the energy efficiency part.
Oh, okay. I was wondering why she was crying. All right,
So we're, thank you.
you're set?
Thank you.
We'll get that sent out, maybe we can get that off our,
Thank you very much.
oh, thank you. Glad you could make it.
You still have another meeting to go to?
No, I'm done. And you both heard from me about the notice that we have the public hearing at 7.
Right, that's what this is, right?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay. Without Ron here, I'm not prepared to, I mean, I'm prepared to go over it, but I think it's foolish to go over the personnel policies with just two of us, if we're going through and editing or sharing ideas on that.
I hear you.
Okay?
I don't disagree.
Okay. That's good.
I have one thing,
Okay.
if you're moving to me, that I would like to share. Because I received phone calls over the weekend, and I did share this with the select board, but I printed it out to make it official, because it was the carbon monoxide, and I didn't think it sounded wise to wait till today to respond, but Joan Bernstein answered and the health agent answered, so I thought it best to bring these in and just make these documents for tonight's meeting. And this is a copy for Ron, although he probably has it in email form already, but here's a printed copy of the folder here. Thank you. I didn't get anything else from the fire chief, so I know he reads these and he gets these. If there was something else he wanted me to know, he alerted me one way or the other.
I know she was in the back of the room today, but I was gonna follow up with him on it. You know, I think that was great.
I didn't think it was ours to get too involved with, but it needed some response.
Well, it
Since
made
it's
me
my
go
call.
around and check my carbon monoxide, because I just went,
Hit the little test buttons.
yeah.
In years gone by, we had one go off, and it turned out something was defective in the basement. Something got plugged up, so it wasn't letting the air out properly.
I did see Dell, and I asked him, did the alarm, the carbon monoxide detectors and the alarm system work as designed? He said that they did. So we should, you know, the real problem is when they don't work.
Yes.
All right. Good, thanks for adding that. I don't really see anything else on the agenda that we need to take up. There's just two of us. Unless you had anything else in mail.
No. I brought
Good.
these in that I included with the chief because I wanted it on the record before he left, and I
Yep.
passed those along, although he didn't have left the table, but just to make it a document as part of tonight's meeting, this to be a document. And we already discussed the email from Ted to include that in the futures.
This is a little bit of mail. It says it's from Joshua Ostroff, Selectman from Natick. He says, I look forward to seeing you at the Massachusetts Selectmen Association Business Meeting at the MMA annual meeting on Saturday, January 25th. Well, I hope he's not looking forward to seeing me. I will definitely be out of town on that day. But well, that's what I'm looking for. I encourage you to attend the closing session of gubernatorial candidates forum. Good sleeper. Boston Heinz Convention Center, Ballroom C. So it starts at 8:30. It starts at 8:30 in the morning and it's done by 10 a.m. Sounds like it's really good business for the Marriott.
Did say 10 a.m. the next day?
No, I'm telling you. Agenda. Oh, unless I think there's no second day.
You missed about 2 days of the meeting.
What's that?
You missed about 2 days of the meeting. It's a 3 or 4 day
It
contract.
doesn't
Right, but
say,
that may not be part of this letter.
but this is part of
Chair
the-
tonight.
the select.
Separate.
Right.
Proposed bylaw. That's what he's looking forward to seeing.
Okay, thank you.
You'll see me at a fair, a state fair meeting first.
Oh, I've been to those a couple of times and it's.
All right.
They have some others they hold that are interesting. This
No, I
seems to
don't
be the
doubt that
annual
they are.
election meeting. Is there
Any,
anything else?
nothing that I didn't think. There's a letter here from Doug Field. This is really to discuss Monday when we're talking about the police business.
Oh, okay.
It's a letter of recommendation.
Okay.
And then I just had this to talk about the general laws as far as police.
Okay. Now, we have another meeting besides the Monday, January 13th. We have that Wednesday, the 15th, I think, for
The leg and everything.
Pine Bluff. And that's what the Finance Committee and other committees do, if I'm not mistaken.
They've all been invited.
They've all been invited.
I just had a bunch of stuff get blown out onto my paperwork.
I wouldn't mess with it.
We need new heating system.
Are you looking for a motion to adjourn?
Any public comments? Now I am.
Make a motion to adjourn.
This is an early night for us. 9:28. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Good. Success. I second. Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't miss anything with that.